Hello. I'm excited to talk with you today about a really important topic in guidance of children, and that is the concept of mistaken behavior. So this presentation is called not misbehavior, mistaken behavior. So it might seem just like semantics, but it does matter, and you'll notice that there's some terms that have changed over the years, and I think for good reason. So obviously people still use the term misbehavior, but a lot of times when we talk about that misbehaving child, it has a lot of negative associations with it. It tends to be blanketed as that bad kid. So for instance, I know a lot of schools talk about bullying behavior now, but we might say it's misbehavior or bullying behavior versus the bully. Of course, bullying behavior is very harmful to everyone. But again, using that as an example, early childhood, especially when we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old children, they're not thinking the same way that an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old would. So we're wanting to redirect the behavior, but using a label like misbehaving kid or that bullying kid does a lot of harm to that student. And it's a harsh label. So the main message that we want to form related to those students is that, everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Unfortunately, we're only human. And so the very important thing is to teach them to apologize and to work to correct that behavior and to learn from it. Let's not hopefully do it again and again. I'll give you a quick story there. Because little children, unless we're modeling this for them as well, and it's hard to admit when we're wrong also, but so important, little children in particular will think that we're perfect, essentially, and that we don't make mistakes. And it's pretty universal that a lot of little ones think this way. And so it's important that we let them know when we do make mistakes, and that we apologize, and that we move on. There was a preschool age boy I was working with this summer, and he ended up pushing and hitting when he didn't like the things that other children were doing. Of course, that's really common at that age, but he didn't have the impulse control yet, and although he knew it was not the right thing to do, he struggled. And so after it happened a couple times, I said, well, we're going to check in with mom and dad as well, just to make sure that that they know what's happening also, and it's okay, but we're going to problem solve and keep working on it so that we can use gentle hands and use your words when you're upset instead of pushing. So I started talking with mom, and I saw right away he felt so much shame and he felt really bad, and the mom was being very sweet as well, but he wasn't looking up, and he looked genuinely really sad when we were talking. And I looked at him and I kind of got down to his level, and I said, everybody makes mistakes. Do you think I make mistakes? And he shook his head slowly. I said, of course I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and I'm a good person, and I make mistakes, and you're a good person, and you make mistakes. It's okay. And he just lit right back up. So I think we have to remember that the little ones especially are pretty fragile as far as their sense of, themselves, and we want to be gentle with them in those things. The other thing is when someone is behaving either poorly or in a good way, we need to remember that all behavior, there's a reason for every behavior. And as adults, and certainly as little kids, we typically don't know why we're behaving. It's not something we sit and think about, but it's for a variety of needs that we want. And so if our needs aren't being met, maybe the teacher's being too difficult or too easy, or I'm feeling frustrated because I don't have the words to express my feelings yet. Regardless, my behavior is based on some type of need that I'm trying to meet. And some behaviors obviously don't get us any closer to our needs, but it's an attempt there. So unfortunately, sometimes, and that's a good question to ask ourselves at any age as well, is the way I'm behaving getting me closer to what I want? So if I'm wanting more time with toys, for instance, and I'm a little one, and I, kind of throw a fit and get really upset and so on, is that getting me more likely to get my toys or less? Sometimes the answer might be more, in which case I'm going to keep doing it. If there's a redirection, or, oh gosh, now I have less time with my toy, then we'll assume that behavior is going to occur less. In learning really tough new skills like how to use language, how to express our needs and frustrations, people make mistakes, and especially little ones. That's a big part of their schooling is, right, how do I share? How do I use my words when I'm frustrated or angry? How do I ask for help appropriately? How do I try to do some things on my own first? There's so many new things that they're learning when they're first starting at school, be it as a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old. Our goal is to help children get those needs met. So let's figure out, for instance, sometimes children they behave or misbehave, mistake. They have a mistaken behavior because they're wanting to escape something that feels too difficult or too boring, so they're trying to get away. Sometimes it's to retaliate, right, if someone's very upsetting them. Sometimes it's for attention. So you've heard the old adage, negative attention's better than no attention. Sometimes it's that as well. So we need to start thinking about are they trying to avoid or escape something? Are they trying to get attention? Well, what's the need? So our goal would be to help them get their need, and in a more socially appropriate way, redirect them when it's a mistaken behavior. So that could be praising and really focusing in when they're doing the right thing, and somewhat largely ignoring when they're not doing the right thing, or a gentle redirect, or something of that nature. But the more we can phrase it in positives, our brains work that way as well. We remember positives more. So we don't want to say, right, no, don't stop, or no running, or no hitting. We want to say things like, we use gentle hands, or walking feet in school, things like that. And this isn't intuitive. It might take some practicing for us if we've been working with children for a while. But I want you to think about, have you ever even taken a multiple choice test and it says which one of the following is not an example of, or which one of the following is not true? The problem with those, our brains are wired to latch on to patterns that are not. And so sometimes the word not will trick us even as adults, and we'll skip over that word not, or it just gets kind of stuck in our head as we're trying to analyze that question. So anytime that we can rephrase, instead of no running in the halls, we use walking feet, right? Stop yelling, inside voice. So how can we change that and direct so we're helping them get to the behaviors that we're looking for? And that's the other important piece. So if I'm either ignoring or redirecting behavior that I don't like, that need still isn't being met possibly, right? So if they're wanting attention or they're wanting escape because they're bored or overwhelmed, I haven't done anything to help meet that need yet. So I need to always be thinking about what's the need that they're trying to have met and what can I do to replace that. So that might be some extra time, or them sitting next to me if I'm noticing, I think it's really for attention. So I'm going to spend some extra time sitting with Johnny and reading with him, or let him be my teacher helper, things like that. So you're trying to think of positive ways to get that need met. And some replacement behaviors. So when it's time to share my toys and I'm struggling to do that sharing, or replacement behavior might be using a sand timer. And let's use this timer and pay attention. And once that sand is out, then it will be my turn to either share my toy or to get my turn. So what are the behaviors we're going to want to teach them to replace that mistaken behavior that they had? There are a lot of different theories, but one of the psychologists I like a lot is William Glasser. And he wrote some great books about reality therapy and choice theory, and he made some schools based on his theory as well. And it's Glasser, is Glasser. And so he said, before anything else, a basic human need is to love and be loved, so to belong. After that would be things like general safety and security. Then freedom, like actual having some choice. And we can see this a lot of times at every age, but certainly by 2-3 years old, where there might be a lot of frustration because they want to open the door, or they want to pull their pants down to go to the bathroom, or they want to wash their hands, right? So giving them some freedom. Or would you like the banana or the apple for snack? Would you like this stuffy or this stuffy for nap time? So you're trying to give some choice for some freedom. And another one is just fun, believe it or not. So fun is important at all ages. When our needs aren't met, we'll start to try to do things to get those needs met. So that again can be that mistaken behavior. I want to go all the way back to the love and be loved, because that's considered the number one need. So whether a child has a disability, has something like autism spectrum, has good social skills, weak social skills, we now know all children, we are wired for connection. So whether a child seems to want to connect or not, they might be shy, they might have disabilities at times, they might just not know how to get that need met or how to connect, but they do want to connect. So being stable and secure and, kind of figuring out their likes and just doing little things to connect in real meaningful ways is so, so important, and it'll go a long way, because a lot of children and adults as well will do extra, and they'll behave better when they know that this person truly cares about them and they have a connection to them. So when you do see a mistaken behavior, it's really important to try to, and you might be thinking, what does this have to do with that behavior? Have a little one-on-one lunchtime, or at rest time, just spend some time one-on-one with them. Anything you can do to start to form that bond and form it more deeply is going to matter a lot. And you're going to be able to communicate better when those problems arise as well, if that's the case. So in order to best support children, you're going to want to teach the replacement behaviors of those desired behaviors. Remember to always use the zone of proximal development. So that zone of proximal development is what a child is capable of doing with your support. So if you try to do too much, it's too difficult for them, even with support. Or if you're not finding their level of development that you should be teaching at, and that can be for behaviors as well, they can do it easily on their own. So you always want to be asking yourself, what can this child do with my support? And that's how we help them keep growing, both academically and socially. I mentioned the key cornerstone importance of forming a relationship, starting that right away. You can start that even before their first day in your class, if you can talk to them outside or send packets of information home, find out about likes, dislikes, family, hobbies, and things like that. Another psychological term, this comes from humanistic psychologists like Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, says we need to have unconditional positive regard, meaning make sure that we're recognizing a mistaken behavior, that it's the behavior, it's not the child, right? So I've heard people say things like, right, that bully, or my disabled kiddo, or things like that. It's not about that. It's that child's name. I always use the name Johnny as a for instance. It's just a made up hypothetical child. But Johnny is working on, these good things. So here's the positive things he's working on. He's getting really great at sharing his toys. That's a positive. Remember that sandwich again. The encouragement area might be, he's still, when he gets frustrated or upset, he will just start screaming. And so we're working on different ways to calm down, and ways to let out that anger in other ways as well. And then I'm going to finish up with another positive. And I need to remember that no matter what, even if Johnny is just having so many struggles with his behavior, he's still great. And if we start recognizing that, I'm not looking at this kiddo as great anymore, I'm actually starting to feel like, it's this kiddo and them personally that's not good, that's when you need to really step back, talk to others, acknowledge it, at least to yourself, but then figure out a way to form that relationship. Because not only will having a strong relationship with that child help that child, it'll help you to remember that that child is far more than just that struggle area of behavior that you're dealing with. And that is the end of our presentation on not misbehavior, but mistaken behavior. I look forward to continuing to read your posts this week and talking to you again next week. Thanks.